You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 44. Today, we're talking all about how to create your reality. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, hello. Welcome to the show. I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And this is a very special episode because, why?
Because it's all about me.
It's all about Phoebe. It's the Phoebe Show. Phoebe, tell us what happened. You just got back from an event, didn't you?
I did. So yesterday, I went to an Abraham-Hicks event just outside San Francisco. And it was something that I've wanted to do since you introduced me to all of the audios and stuff that I've heard before. And I wasn't sure I was even going to go. And I was not sure until Friday evening. The event was on Saturday morning, starting at like 8 o'clock. Registration was at 8. And I think I made the decision at around 4:30 in the afternoon. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to wake up early, get down there. It's about 30 to 35 minutes away from where I live. And I was really excited and a little bit nervous, but more so excited. That's
so awesome. For those of you who don't know who Abraham-Hicks are, I'll do a quick little intro on him. Now, I've been to a couple of their events, and I love them. But we've talked about like my morning routine, and part of my morning routine usually includes about 30 minutes of listening to some Abraham on YouTube. And for me, they are so much responsible for where I am in my life, spiritually, financially, just like mentally and emotionally. I mean, like I just look back and it's all from their message. And my life is so different because of that. And it started when my sister and my mom got me a book called Ask and It Is Given. And I read the first preface, like chapter 1 or something. That basically said that, hi, I'm this woman who is channeling a being through me and it's giving the secrets of the universe. And I just remember taking the book and I said, nope. And I just tossed it in the garbage. What a jerk, right? And it took a while to come back to that place. And that was a journey in and of its own. But I found somebody else who was teaching some stuff, like who was very financially successful, and they were saying how much that Abraham had an effect on them. So that gave me a second chance. And for years, I still today, but for years I would just listen and listen and listen. And I played the skeptic, I played the scientist, and I tried to look for holes in their argument. I tried to look for contradictory statements. I tried to look for lies. Like I tried it all. I finally gave up, and my life has been extraordinary ever since. And they come from a few very simple premises. Like the most simple one is just they're really the ones who first really started coining the term law of attraction before The Secret. They're actually in the movie The Secret and were taken out last minute. They say follow your bliss, the path of least resistance. And it's really about, choosing your vibration first and attracting the reality of the same vibration to you. And it's so backwards from what we've been taught. And you'll hear a lot of what I say on this podcast comes from hearing what Abraham has said and then applying it to my life and business and then sharing my version of it here with you guys. And so Phoebe going to one of their events is just so awesome, and she didn't even tell me.
I had about an 8-hour window, and I was like,
that is not an excuse. That's a lot of time to send a 15-second text.
Well, I figured you'd stalk me on Snapchat.
I would have probably gotten on a plane and said, all right, I'll be right there. Yeah, I would have stalked you on Snapchat. So what we wanted to do with this episode is have Phoebe share what she learned, the breakthroughs, the ahas, the light bulbs, all of it. So this is the Phoebe Show. And it's such a great, I'm sure, for our listeners to have a break from me. So you take us away. Where do you want to direct us?
Well, first I want to start and just say what a coincidence it is that this is episode number 44. That's like my lucky number.
Boom.
My angel number. And I saw when we were like, this is episode 44. I was like, of course it is. It would have to be episode 44. So That was exciting. So really, I just kind of want to start with something that I heard. Abraham said right at the beginning, and it was, you didn't come to face reality. You came to create reality. And I felt that that was something, a lot of the day yesterday was kind of really good reminders for me. But this one, it was like, I don't know, I just had a light bulb moment where I was like, yeah, so many people, so often we're dealing with things as opposed to creating our life. And so I thought that that was something, I wrote it and I highlighted it and, was outlining it as she was talking. And it was just really interesting because, yeah, as I said, like I just get caught so much up in what's given to me at the moment and what challenges I'm facing or, what opportunities I have, as opposed to like kind of pushing pause on that and looking at where I want to go from here, but with a blank slate. And I know we talked a little bit about that on the episode with the Tony Robbins documentary. And it was just such a good reminder. And I feel at the moment I'm in this really funny kind of like 2 to 3 week phase where everything is just compounding. It's like a big snowball. All these things yesterday were like, oh my gosh, of course this would be happening right now, a week after, the Tony Robbins thing and all those breakthroughs I had. So I feel like I'm on such a high at the moment.
Yeah, if you guys have been following along the podcast, Phoebe's kind of been sharing this journey, which is so awesome just to document it. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to come back here in like a year or two and be like, oh my gosh, I remember when I was on this, like, it's like a spiritual descent, where you like do the free fall on the roller coaster. And like all these things start happening at once. You have all these synchronistic moments and events and people that you're connecting with and ideas and emotions. And I just think that's awesome. And of course, yeah, this comes right at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So the first, there are 5 like key takeaways that I got from the event. And the first one was struggle and contrast are not imperative for receiving or clarity. And so the structure of the event is that somebody has a question and Abraham like brings you up to the microphone. I did not speak, but a lot of the questions, obviously you're kind of putting yourself in those shoes and whoever's chosen to speak is kind of speaking for the audience. And there's little nuggets that everyone's supposed to get out of that. And so this was a really important one to me because this guy came up and he was like, I have just lived a life of struggle and I have come from, I've done the rags to riches and all of this. And I think that's something that, I've kind of struggled with is that I don't have this, this crazy financial rags to riches story. And, I've never had $2 in my bank account. I've always had kind of an issue with that. Like, who's going to listen to me? I haven't gone, from the $2 in my bank account to millions of dollars. I'm not there. And what Abraham said was that this struggle, like you don't have to have that struggle to have this beautiful life, to be open to receiving great ideas, just having kind of a prosperous mindset, an abundant mindset. Or if you want some clarity, you don't have to go back to all these moments in your life when you were struggling. And of course, struggle is different for everybody. And that was a really important piece that I also wrote down in my notebook because, I might not have maybe struggled financially in the way that, this man up on the stage had, but I have struggled emotionally and, with all these other issues just as everybody else has. So that was a really eye-opening moment for me because I was like, here I am thinking that because I haven't had that I'm not kind of available to all of these other things that maybe somebody who had the $2 in their bank account, would be open for.
Well, it really becomes the central theme and message or core premise that we want to be delivering on every episode of this podcast, which is that struggle is synonymous with hustle. Or I wish it weren't, but it has been made synonymous with hustle. And so this is where we use this term called the hustle denial, where what I believe is going on for most people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, is that they create a desire for themselves, a reality that they want to live into, a certain financial number, a certain experience or feeling of freedom, and then on a deep subconscious level, and I only know this from personal experience, by the way. I mean, that's how I originally see this as such truth, is because it's personal experience. You create that goal, and then on some level you say that you're not worthy of it or that you're not enough. And we look for ways in this physical reality to prove to everyone else, to convince everyone else that we are. Because how many times do we see when we hustle or when we see other people hustle, like they want to make sure everyone else knows about it. Mm-hmm. And I think this is so important that you don't have to struggle in order to get what you want. You don't. And I love it. I think it's great. So I equate that word struggle with hustle for most people because they call it hustling because it sounds cool. But for a lot of people, it's just, oh, okay, it has to be hard and I have to work 14-hour days and sacrifice time with my family. Okay, all right. And we're saying, no, you don't. So that's great. What else?
Okay, so the number 2 was understand but don't need to prove or explain. And this one hit me pretty hard because I have always felt like I had to prove myself to people, to family members, and really explain. I have to get them to understand what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, what I'm believing, whatever that looks like. I've struggled a lot, especially in the last, year and a half of, I would say, like my spiritual journey, or just that I really want people to understand what this looks like or what this could provide for them in their life. And I end up, it kind of causes a little bit of friction. And even yesterday I had an experience after going to this event where I was on a high, of course, and trying to get everyone. And I was in the car with these 2 girls, 2 of my girlfriends here. And she was talking about how she wants to build her business, but she just can't. And it's just really not her passion and all of this. And I was like, no, but you don't understand. And there was a point where I was like, you know what? I have to go back to this. I know that I get it in the way that I get it. And I don't need her to understand what I believe, what I feel, what I think she should, because it doesn't matter. Her journey is her journey and my journey is my journey. And so I think a lot of that understanding has to come from within you as opposed to forcing it on other people. I've always said that I'm not somebody who forces any kind of belief on other people. But when I actually took a step back, even yesterday, after all of this, after this aha moment, and I'm like, wait a second, I can hear myself. I'm doing this to one of my girlfriends. And that's not a place that I want to come from. But also, if I do look at it, it's more of I really want you to get this because your life is amazing and it can be so much more amazing if you understand this, but they just might not be ready for it.
I mean, that's the curse of being a coach, a teacher, or a healer. You create this commitment and this attachment to this person getting it. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a source of a breakdown for us when they don't. Mm-hmm. You're like, weren't you in the same room as me? Didn't you hear what I heard? I mean, were we talking to 2 different people? Yeah. And it's tough. And I've totally been there myself. I think most notably was with my dad, because I started going down this path and I saw how hard he worked, and being the natural rebel I was. That's kind of what ultimately led me here. Is wait a second, I don't have to work as hard as he does and I can be just as successful. All right, let's give this a shot. I so wanted him to get this and I had to give up trying because I saw how hard I was just trying to force something on somebody and it would exhaust me. Mm-hmm. The irony is it just brought me right back down to where I was. Right. All my effort of trying to I really was forcing my beliefs on somebody else. And what is so beautiful about what you and I do, Phoebe, and what probably a lot of our listeners do, is you have a platform, whether it be a podcast, video, email, Facebook group, live events, where you don't have to do that, where your platform becomes the magnet that attracts the right people. We don't have to force. It's amazing how we'll just talk here and we'll have fun doing it. And then we'll get a message and it's something that I didn't even know I was really saying, just kind of threw something out there. And someone will come back and be like, that thing you said, this one thing was mind-blowing to me. And I was like, oh, really? I didn't even, okay. But we are so fixated on this is how I got it and this is how I understand it and this is what I know. And I need you to know it the exact same way in the same way that I learned it. And we can relax that a little bit and say, hey, by creating your own platform, you actually attract the people that are ready for it. Mm-hmm. And I can see that by you going to this event, maybe a couple years ago, it would have been a total role reversal where your friend would have dragged you there and you would have been like, yeah, I want to start this business, but reason. And someone else would have been like, gosh, Phoebe, weren't you in that same room? I don't get it. We're all on our own journey. It's all our own timing. Boy, to go deeper with this, I think when we're hard on others around us, it's simply a reflection of how hard we are on us. You know what I mean? How hard we are on to get it and get it right and do all the right things. And how often do we beat ourselves up because we had a bad day or we got triggered easily or we were negative or we judged or we had an opinion. And then we beat ourselves up for that. And it's oh boy. Mm-hmm. So I think we can give ourselves grace. We can give the people around us grace. But we're human. So That's awesome.
Well, I think that kind of leads really nicely into point number 3, which is the universe will gift you things when and in the way you're ready to receive them.
Divine timing. Yeah.
Yep. I wrote that specifically down like in quotation marks because really I loved hearing that because I feel like, just as you said, maybe 2 years ago, someone would have brought me in a room. And I remember when you gave me an Abraham audio to listen to. And I know exactly where I was when I was in Berlin in the kitchen listening to it. And I was like, oh my, I was getting so caught up in the language. I wasn't getting it, but there were pieces that I was like, okay, all right. In my head, I was trying to connect the dots. And the more effort I put into it, the more I started to learn the language and to wrap my brain around it a little bit better. I'm not saying now I totally get everything, but I do think that at that point I was ready, but 6 months before that, maybe it never would have resonated with me. And so I felt like that was something, even in this experience with the girl yesterday, that it was like, yeah, she's just not ready for this yet. And maybe I'm not saying it in a way that it's going to really resonate with her. And so maybe next time I either change my message or kind of change the angle that I come at it from, or someone might walk up to her and be like, hey, you should really go to this Abraham-Hicks event. And then she's going to go and light bulb moment. And I don't know, but not to beat myself up about the way that she's going to receive it. But I think for me more so is the way that I have this like angst in me that I always feel like if I'm not getting something and I'm looking around and everybody's writing, I'm like, wait, why did I not just get that? And I have this weird like fear inside me that's like, oh God, I missed something really big. But I just having the faith and the confidence that I'm going to get it when and in the way that I'm ready to receive it, I think was a really big moment for me.
Well, I just look back to the story I already told of how I got into the Abraham stuff. I mean, my mom and sister gives it to me. I wasn't ready yet. And it was, I would say 3 years later, and it was a guy teaching the exact same thing. But the difference is he spent the first hour, I'll never forget this. These audios changed my life. He spends the first hour of this like 2-day audio cassette thing, like you're just listening to it straight. It took me a week to go through it. First hour, he's just talking about all the results in business. He's had a multiple 7-figure business. I think it was like 8-figure at that point. And, all these best-selling books and these companies he created, all these things, like accomplishment. And for me, very masculine left-brained at the time, I was like, oh, yes, yeah, okay, great, you got me. Now what? And then he'd say, it's this thing called law of attraction. And I'm like, wait, I've heard this. No, this is garbage. And then he would be like, I know what you're thinking. This is garbage. You know what I mean? And you're just like, he spoke to me in the terms that I got it. And I really believe looking at that was just another way of the message trying to get through to me. And I could have thrown that out too, and I could still be here throwing out another one. And I don't know, maybe we're the third thing that you guys have tried throwing out and you hear it again. And you're like, darn it, maybe I should start listening to this stuff. So who knows? Mm-hmm. But I'm glad I did. I really am. I mean, those are moments in my life where so much changed so fast. And at the end of that audio, he said, here's some resources where you can go further with this. First, the number one resource I recommend, all the Abraham-Hicks material. All of what I just said is in there. Here are their books. And I just devoured them. Timing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and so one example that Esther was giving right at the beginning was they were saying that Esther was walking into the hotel, into the Westin, and turned around and saw all these like bubbles randomly out of nowhere. And she was saying, she's like, if only we looked for, if bubbles would signify something awesome, that you are on your way to something great, to your goals, to your dreams, your desires, whatever that is. But if instead of looking for that goal or dream or desire, we're actually looking for the bubbles on our way. And it was funny, we walk outside and there's this, everyone just sees tons of bubbles after the first session. And you're kind of like, what is happening? And then you look over in the corner and there's this lady wearing like bright purple sunglasses. And she's just like waving this little bubble maker thing, whatever that's called. And she's waving it and there are just like bubbles coming out everywhere. And it was just such a nice moment that I will never forget because it was so, synchronistic, or, obviously she knew that what was happening because she was part of the event also, but it was really nice. And I like that, looking for the bubbles, because the bubbles are going to lead you to where you want to go. And I thought that was a really nice piece. And also bringing it back to our business, they were saying that sometimes people fear that maybe if you do have a platform, that you're going to put it out there and there are going to be so many people that aren't looking for what you can provide. They're not looking for that solution, or you're not saying it in the way that they're going to get it, but really having the confidence, the trusting to know that those people, the people who need your message, who really resonate, who are looking for that, and you're saying it in the right way that's going to appeal to them, they're going to be the ones attracted to you. And the people who aren't, let them kind of fall away. That's really not your focus. Your focus is on the people who are attracted to what you're providing, what you're creating, and how you're going to help them and, achieve their desires, your desires. And it's just like a big kind of combines all of those things.
My newest thing now is if I ever get like a criticism or, a critique, my newest response is just a simple reply that says, or maybe you're not my ideal customer. Like, it's funny that people don't really consider that. It's like, maybe I've spent years and tons of hours in those years focusing, honing in on who my ideal customer is, who my audience is, and you are not it. So maybe that's why you don't like it. And that's pretty powerful. When you know who you're talking to and who you're not, well, that's awesome. Just ignore the people not in that focus group. So, yeah, I love it. All right, what's next?
So number 4 is don't try to accomplish your vortex. Let your vortex accomplish. And I know that's kind of a mouthful. And I remember when I was writing it down, I was like, I have to actually take notes on this because I'm going to go home and it's not going to make sense to me. So what they were saying is your vortex is like all those, they call it like a rocket of desire, but you launch these rockets of desire into this vortex. So it's all of your hopes, dreams, wishes, everything that you want your life to look like. And the example was from a lady whose question was about how she knows what's in there. She knows what's in her vortex because it's, these 3 books that she hasn't written yet, but it's in there. And it's, having grandkids, she knows it's in there. Her breakdown was around like, I know it's in there, but how do I accomplish all of those things? And how do I just, have faith that it's all coming? And Abraham was saying, really detach yourself from the outcome. And this is something I know we talk about on the podcast a lot, but just detach yourself from the outcome. You actually might not know what's in that vortex, but focusing on that feeling or that essence of desire, as they call it, and just the essence of how you want to feel, put those in there and then let it kind of play out in a way that may surprise you. You might get even more or better than you ever imagined, but knowing how you want to feel as opposed to the concrete items that are going to get you there will just totally change the game. And so when I was writing it out, I was like, I have all these things that I think I need to, it's a list of accomplishments that for me would make me feel like I was on my way and I really was getting all these things that would kind of create this dream life that I'm about. And then it was really the reminder of like actually going back to the, really focusing on that feeling as opposed to all those things that are going to get me there. Because the second you, I think, turn off that little tap that's like, okay, this is what it's going to look like and all these things are going to come to you, like, who knows, you might get it in a totally different way. And so that's what I'm getting excited about is that I know how I want to feel. And now, or I know what I want my business to look like, but I actually don't. And there's so many things that are not on my radar that could contribute to this massively successful business that I want to create. Or maybe it's not a business at all. Maybe it's some other area of my life that I haven't even considered. So that was a big one for me.
I love it. And I think the detachment piece is so huge. I play this game with myself. It's kind of like a litmus test for your attachment to something. So when we set up something for like a goal, a launch, a project, whatever, I run these sick little games in my head where I play out what would happen right now if I found out I didn't hit my number, or if I didn't hit the goal, or it didn't happen the way I wanted to. And I know it sounds a little like sick and twisted at first, like why are you playing these doomsday? But it's just to tap into, where am I going with this? Do I define it as me, like something's wrong with me, like I'm a failure, it's now an identity of who I am, or it's going to freak, like if I go, oh my gosh, no, I can't even think about that. Well, then there's too much attachment to there. You've got to soften that. You got to let go of that. There's got to be this balance between this trust, knowing, expectation that no matter what happens, it's for your highest good, and that's it. You have the goal, and you're okay with how that goal shows up, when it shows up, etc. And that's a very delicate balance or dance that I've experienced in my life that's not something you just like, oh, okay, you know it, and then you walk away. Like, it's a daily discipline. That's great. Let's move on to the fifth one.
Yep. So the fifth one is resistance slows momentum. And the word momentum was thrown out so much yesterday. And so they were saying that the single most important word to really get the law of attraction to work and work effectively is momentum. And so there was this whole concept around segment intending. So if you've read the book Ask and It Is Given, which I can't remember if I've read it or like listened to it on Audible or not, but they were saying there's a whole section in the back that you should really go and listen to. So what that really meant for me was, so they were saying segment intending is when you deliberately think about a specific thought the way that you meant to think about it in a new segment. And so the new segment is when something has kind of changed a little bit. So like, the situation has changed. So maybe walking into your house, or maybe you pick up the phone, or you go on a morning walk. That's a new segment. So it's like a new chapter. And I like that it's called a segment because it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be the situation has changed a little bit. So if you intentionally address it once a day, you specifically say, I'm going to, for the next, on my 45-minute walk every morning, I'm going to deliberately think about something and do that once a day. You start to gain this momentum. And so, for example, if I said, when I'm walking around this morning, it's going to be my intention to like feel great, to feel inspired, or to gain inspiration, to feel refreshed and energized, and to just, gain some clarity, whatever that looks like, then that really kickstarts or jumpstarts like that momentum that is already underway. So we always have that momentum, but to kind of kickstart it makes it happen a little bit faster.
Totally.
So you get stronger and stronger, and that momentum gets stronger and stronger, so that any kind of thoughts that might contradict it or resist it aren't as likely to get started, because you don't allow that time for them to implant themselves, I guess, in that period. So you're so specific and deliberate and intentional about those thoughts. So then going one step further, they were talking about a segment within a segment. So it's a little bit inceptionist, but as part of like feeling good, you could say like, I like the idea of anticipating having a new project or my own project if you are currently employed. I like the idea, and this is a phrase that I wrote down, was I like the idea of anticipating. Like, that is just so vague, but so great. And I like that. Yes. So it's not like I like having my own project. It's like, I like the idea, just throwing it out there, of anticipating my own project. And so it puts you in this, what they call a receptive mode. And so when you're in that mode, deliberately thinking about it, ideas just flow to you so much more readily and easily. And so every day you think about it more and more, because you have more momentum and it becomes more specific. And then it opens you up to actually receiving. And then that will kind of allow you to be in the right place at the right time, because that has now taken over so much of your thoughts. So you can say things like, it's going to be fun to have, for a live event, we'll say, it's going to be fun to have the perfect venue, or it's going to be fun to attract the perfect people and create breakthroughs in their lives, or whatever that could be in your business or in your life. And then it just doesn't allow for those negative thoughts, because that excitement really trumps any kind of doubt that you have. And so that was a huge, I think for me, this was the biggest piece that I got out of it, because I can always say, yeah, I want to go on a walk, and I try to go on my morning walks, but to be so intentional and so deliberate that for the next, even the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to think about this live event, or I'm going to think about this app idea, or I'm going to think about whatever it is. But it's not like, how am I going to make it work? Jamming that peg into the hole. It's like,
that's the resistance.
Right. It's like, I am going to feel into that. And like, what is that going to feel like? And then, that just opens the dialogue for more ideas, or for that, like, how to start to play itself out in conversations or in people you meet, or, maybe someone sends you an email, whatever that is. But that was a huge, huge piece for me.
I love it. And we've talked about a little bit about this on previous episodes. We talk about your morning routine. And this is really an opportunity where, like, this morning routine, or this time to do this, to create this momentum, is like a window into your future. Where if you can take the vision, the goals that you have for yourself, that you're creating over the next 6 months, the next year, the next 5 to 10 years, and say, what will my life look like? What will my life be like? How will I feel when I have those things? And deliberately choose to just find those feelings now, during this time, this 30-minute walk, this hour of your day, hour of power, I think is so important. And so when we've had other things come up, right, it all comes back to this, where Phoebe has brought it up, like listeners have brought it up, where we have this guilt when we're not working. I feel guilty taking time off. No, because when you're taking time off, you're doing this work, and this work matters. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a Sunday and we're recording an episode, but I spent 2 hours at the beach doing this exact thing, painting more of the vision of my future and feeling what it feels like now and stepping into that now. And then I get inspired with like all these ideas, and I call Phoebe, and before we know it, we're recording a podcast today. This is huge. That needs to be part of your daily practice. Feel that now. Find a way. You can give me all the excuses that you want, but I'm just going to say they're excuses and reasons. I don't have the time. I've got the kids. I've got a busy business. This is essential. You have time to eat and go to the bathroom. We always have time for the things that matter, for the things that we can't live without. You couldn't get by for very many days without going to the bathroom and eating or sleeping at least a few hours. The things that are essential, we do. What if we made this essential? You know, I always like to say when people say, I don't have the time to do this stuff, I said, that should be the very number one reason why you do something about it. That is not a fact. That is just a symptom of how you have been living. I don't have the time. You know, it's like saying, I have a headache because you were drinking last night. You know, why do you think we don't have the time? Because of the choices that we've made in the past. And we can deliberately change that now, right now. Hopefully, that's what you guys are doing while you're listening to these episodes. That's really why we created this, because I wanted more of that. I wanted this little segment intending where I could go for a walk and just be fed this while I step into the vision of my life. That's all we've been trying to do. And for a lot of listeners, I think they already get that and they know that and they're doing that. If you haven't, just start it. Don't do this while you're working or the technical busy work. Do this while you're doing the spiritual, the energetic, and the mental work, the emotional work. Love it. Phoebe, anything else?
I don't think so. I think it's just when I left, I came away with just such a knowing, a trusting, and understanding. And so I would just encourage listeners, you know, if any of this kind of resonated with you, just to really put this, you know, into your daily practice. Like we were just saying, like work this into when you're doing the dishes or when you're going for a walk, but just be intentional about it. And I left being like, I can create anything that I want. And so I really hope that that came across in the episode, because that is so much how I'm feeling at the moment, and just kind of keeping that momentum going forward, I think is really important in my life and obviously in everyone else's lives as well.
Well, Phoebe, thank you so much for spearheading this episode, for sharing your experience. I think this will just also continue to help to contribute so much more to the podcast. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We've now both been to Abraham-Hicks events. We both highly recommend them. They do them like all over the country, and they're really inexpensive, and you just sit in a room and they just do like a hot seat thing and answer questions, and it's real simple, real fun. I think it's great. And you can also, in the meantime, find free videos over on YouTube. Just type in Abraham-Hicks, and they record all of them, and people just upload them to YouTube, and they have like all these views, and they just keep growing. So, because it works, they've been doing this work for like 30 some odd years now. Pretty amazing. So thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't left a review for us over on iTunes yet, we would love for you to do that now. Head on over to jameswedmore.com/iTunes so you can make sure to subscribe to the podcast. We've got 2 episodes out every single week. We've got our main episode on Monday, like this one, and our listener question of the week every Thursday, where you can submit a question and be featured on one of our episodes. So head on over to jameswedmore.com/iTunes, and you can leave your review there. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.